Sutta 9.4.38. Now 2 Brahmins skilled in metaphysics or the philosophy of mind visited the Exalted One, and after greeting him and exchanging the usual compliments, sat down at one side. So seated, they said this to him: Master Gotama, Purana Kassapa, all-knowing, all-seeing, professes unlimited knowledge and vision, saying, whether I walk, stand, sleep, or wait, always, ever, knowledge and vision are present. And he has thus declared, with infinite knowledge I abide, knowing, seeing a finite world. Master Gotama, the Niganta Nataputta, all-knowing, all-seeing, also professes unlimited knowledge and vision in like words. But he has declared thus, with infinite knowledge I abide, knowing, seeing an infinite world. Of these 2 talkers on knowledge, Master Gotama, of these 2 who contradict each other, which of the 2 speaks the truth, which lies? And the Buddha said, enough, Brahmins, which speaks the truth, which lies, let it be. I will teach you Dhamma, Brahmins. Listen, pay heed, I will speak. I just stop here for a while. These 2 external ascetic leaders mentioned here, Purana Kassapa and Niganta Nataputta, the Jain, they are 2 of 6 well-known as external sect teachers during the time of the Buddha. And Purana Kassapa said that he has infinite knowledge, knowing and seeing a finite world, whereas Niganta Nataputta says that he has infinite knowledge, knowing and seeing an infinite world. So these 2 Brahmins, they asked the Buddha, one says that the world is finite, the other one says that the world is infinite, which means that they contradict each other. So the Brahmins wanted to know which one was speaking the truth and which one was lying. But the Buddha, instead of telling them plainly that the 2 of them were lying, the Buddha decided to just ignore the questions and teach them Dhamma, because if he spoke the truth and said that the 2 were lying, these 2 Brahmins may not believe him because they are not actually disciples of the Buddha yet. And why are they lying? Because they are saying that whether they walk, stand, sleep or awake, always, all the time, knowledge and vision are present in them. But in another sutta, the Buddha has said that this is not possible. It is not possible for a being, for a person to know everything all the time. Even the Buddha himself, he only knows when he contemplates, when he puts attention to what he wants to know, then he knows. If he does not want to know, for example, much of the time the Buddha spends in meditation, in deep meditation states, and a lot of things that goes on in the world he does not know because he's not much bothered to know. And because of that, sometimes, quite often, devas have to come and inform the Buddha, for example, that Devadatta, one of his former disciples, is planning to kill him or something. So the sutta continues. So, yes, sir, they replied. That means the Brahmins replied. And the Exalted One said, imagine, Brahmins, 4 men standing at the 4 corners of the world, each endowed with supreme pace and speed, with supreme length of stride. As an archer, mighty with bow, skilled, deft, a marksman, may wing with ease a slender shaft across a palm tree's shadow. Let such be their speed. As western sea from eastern sea, such their stride. Now suppose the man standing at the eastern corner were to say, by walking I'll reach the end of the world. Though man's lifespan were 100 years, and he lived 100 years, and walked for 100 years, except when eating, drinking, chewing, munching, answering nature's calls, and dispelling fatigue by sleep, he would die before he reached the end of the world. And suppose a man at the western corner, at the northern corner, and the man at the southern corner were to say likewise, though each walked for 100 years, except when eating and so forth, they would die before they reached the end of the world. And why? Not Brahmins, by such journeys do I declare that the world's end may be known, seen, reached. Yet I declare, Brahmins, that without reaching the end of the world, there is no ending of ill. I stop here for a moment. The Buddha is saying, suppose 4 persons, they can walk with extremely fast speed, and their strides, if they took 1 step, they could go from the western sea to the eastern sea. Such great is their stride, and their speed, like arrow shot by an expert archer, very fast. Yet if they kept walking for 100 years, they would not be able to reach the end of the world. Why? Because the world, space has no limits. You can't find the boundaries of space. That's why they keep on walking or flying. They can never reach the end of the world. There is a similar sutta called the Rohitasa Sutta. I think we have come across that sutta before. I think under the Book of the Force. It is also found in the Anguttara Nikaya, where a deva came to ask the Buddha whether by flying he could get out of the world, reach the end of the world. And the Buddha said, it is not possible. So the Buddha continues, Brahmins, these 5 strands of sense desire are called the world in the code of the Aryan. What 5? Shapes cognized by the eye, longed for, alluring, pleasurable, lovely, bound up with passion and desire. Sounds cognized by the ear, smells by the nose, taste by the tongue, contacts cognized by the touch, longed for, alluring, pleasurable, lovely, bound up with passion and desire. These are the 5 strands of sense desire, Brahmins. I stop here for a moment. Why are the 5 strands of sense desire called the world? Because if we examine carefully, where is the world? We would have to say, we know a world exists because of seeing the forms in the world, hearing the sounds in the world, smelling the smells in the world, tasting the taste in the world, and touching the things in the world, contacts in the world. So because of these 5 senses, the world arises to us. Without the 5 senses, there is no world. That is why the 5 strands of sense desire are called the world in the Aryan code. And the Buddha continues, now consider, Brahmins, the monk who, aloof from sense desire, enters and abides in the first jhana. He is said to have come to the world's end and abide at the world's end. And some say thus of him, this one is still world-bound, still not gone out from the world. I too say this of him, he is still world-bound, still not gone out from the world. Then consider Brahmins, the monk who enters and abides in the second jhana, the third, the fourth jhana, the sphere of infinite space, the sphere of infinite consciousness, the sphere of nothingness, the sphere of neither perception nor non-perception. In each case, he is said to have come to the world's end and abide there. And some say of him as before, and I too say of him, he is still world-bound, still not gone out from the world. Now consider Brahmins, the monk who, passing wholly beyond the sphere of neither perception nor non-perception, enters and abides in this ending of perception and feeling, and by wisdom sees that the asavas are completely destroyed. That monk is said to have come to the world's end, and abide at the world's end, to have passed through the world's entanglement. That's the end of the sutta. So here the Buddha is saying, when a monk enters and abides in the jhanas, he comes to the world's end, and abide at the world's end. But even though he comes to the world's end, he has still not gone out from the world. Why is it that he is said to come to the world's end? Because when a monk enters the jhanas, the world recedes from him. The world of forms, sounds, smells, taste, touch, these recede from him. He is no more conscious of them. That's why he is come to the end of the world. But however, he has still not gone out from the world. He has still not gone out from the world. It is only when he attains the sphere of the ending of perception and feeling, when the sixth normal consciousness stops, then and when the asavas are destroyed, then he has not only come to the world's end, he has gone out of the world. He is no more bound by the world. So that's the end of the sutta. So from here you can see that the samatha meditation is very important, tranquilization of the mind, because to get out of the world we have to practice samatha. Even before the getting out of the world, to come to the end of the world, to abide at the world's end, we have to attain the jhanas. So samatha practice, the meditation, samatha meditation is very much the Buddha's teachings. It is suttas like this where it's very clear that if we want to come to the world's end, we must attain the jhanas. We attain the jhanas, we come to the world's end, and a little bit more effort, and with the samatha practice plus vipassana, then we get out of the world. So samatha and vipassana, they go hand in hand. You cannot separate samatha from vipassana practice. Both are required in the Aryan Eightfold Path as the seventh and the eighth factor. Seventh is the right mindfulness, which is vipassana practice, and the eighth is right concentration, which is samatha practice for attaining the jhanas. The next sutta is 9.4.39. The Buddha said, monks, long ago a battle raged between the devas and the asuras, and in that battle the asuras won and the devas were defeated, and the defeated devas simply fled, with the asuras facing north, hot after them. Then the devas thought, the asuras give chase, let us battle with them a second time. And a second time they fought, and a second time were defeated and pursued. And a third time they fought, and the asuras won, and the devas were defeated. And defeated and fearful, they just entered the deva city. Monks, thus gone to their city, the devas thought, Now that we have come to the refuge for the fearful, we will henceforth dwell by ourselves and have no dealings with the asuras. And the asuras thought also, gone indeed are the devas to the refuge for the fearful. Henceforth they will dwell by themselves and have no dealings with us. Monks, long ago another battle raged between the devas and asuras, but in that fight the devas won and the asuras were defeated. And the defeated asuras fled, pursued by the devas facing south. Then thought the asuras, the devas pursue us, what if we fight a second time? And they did so, and were a second time defeated. And a third time they fought, and the devas won, and the asuras were defeated. And defeated and fearful, they just entered the asura city. And thus gone to their city, the asuras thought, now that we've come to the refuge for the fearful, we will dwell by ourselves, and have nothing to do with the devas. And the devas thought likewise. In just the same way, monks, what time a monk, aloof from sense desires, enters and abides in the first jhana, he thinks, now that I have come to the refuge for the fearful, I will henceforth dwell by myself and have no dealings with Mara. And Mara, the evil one, thinks, now that the monk has gone to the refuge for the fearful, he will dwell by himself and have no dealings with me. Monks, what time a monk enters and abides in the second jhana, the third, the fourth jhana, he thinks likewise, and Mara too thinks likewise. Monks, when a monk enters and abides in the sphere of infinite space, he is said to have put a darkness about Mara, and Mara's vision, being blotted out, is without range, and he has become invisible to the evil one. Monks, when a monk enters and abides in the sphere of infinite consciousness, in the sphere of nothingness, in the sphere of neither perception nor non-perception, and by wisdom sees that the asavas are completely destroyed, he is said to have put a darkness about Mara, and Mara's vision, being blotted out, is rangeless, and he has become invisible to the evil one, and has passed through the world's entanglement. That's the end of the sutta. So here the Buddha is giving a simile. When the devas and the asuras fight, and one of them is defeated, they go into their city and hide there. And because their city gates are locked, the enemies cannot come inside. So they dwell in their city, which is called the refuge for the fearful. So in the same way, the Buddha is saying, when a monk enters and abides in the first, second, third or fourth jhana, then he is beyond the reach of Mara or Satan. Why? Why is he beyond the reach of Mara or Satan? Because Mara's world is the world of the five senses. Or you can, if you want to, you can add the world of the six senses, including thinking. And as well, our six senses, our six sense doors are open, and we go out and we pay attention to forms, especially beautiful forms, beautiful sounds, smells, taste, touch, and thoughts. Then Mara will tempt us, and we can be caught or defeated by Mara. But when we go into the jhanas, the first, second, third, and fourth jhana, then that is out of the range of Mara, because Mara cannot enter the jhanas. Mara is unable to enter the jhanas. Mara can only bait us. He can bait us with beautiful forms, sounds, smells, taste, touch, and even thoughts. But when our mind is controlled, when we are one-pointed in jhana, nothing can shake us. Mara we are beyond the reach of Mara. That is why, for example, in the description of the first jhana, the Buddha says, aloof from sense desires, aloof from unwholesome states, a monk enters and abides in the first jhana, which is accompanied by delight, piti and sukha, pleasure. And so in the description of the first jhana, you can see that the first jhana is a state which is aloof from sense desires and also aloof from unwholesome states. Aloof from unwholesome states. That means it is a totally wholesome state. Jhanas are totally wholesome states. There is nothing unwholesome about jhanas. It is not a state of sloth and torpor, not a trance state, not a sleepy state. It is a state of intense mindfulness. That is why, because in the state of the first jhana, the mind is in control of itself. That is why it's beyond the reach of Mara. But when a person enters the arupa jhanas, the spheres of infinite space, infinite consciousness, nothingness, and neither perception nor non-perception, then the mind opens up to infinite space, infinite consciousness, etc. And when that happens, Mara cannot see you. You're beyond the vision of Mara. That's why here the sutta says, you have put a darkness about Mara. And Mara's vision is blotted out. So you see, these jhanas are great states. When you attain these jhana states, we have gone beyond the reach of Mara. So that is the way to attain liberation, to be freed of Mara by attaining the jhanas. The next sutta is 9.4.39. Monks, when bull or cow or young or baby elephant browsing on the grass stops, forestalls some forest tusker about to take his feed, so that he is plagued, provoked and vexed. When bull or cow or young or baby elephant devours the bunches of broken boughs, when bull or cow or young elephant stirring up the water with his trunk forestalls the forest tusker gone down to the water hole, when cow elephants go and rub against the body of the tusker gone down to the water hole, so that he is plagued, provoked and vexed, then monks, the forest tusker thinks, in faith, I live now in a crowd of bull elephants, cow elephants, young elephants, baby elephants. I eat merely grass stubble. They eat my bunches of broken boughs. I drink muddied water, and cow elephants come and rub against my body when I've gone to the water hole. What if I dwell alone, withdrawn from the herd? And presently, monks, he dwells alone, withdrawn from the herd. And he eats uncropped grass, and none devours his bunches of boughs. He drinks unmuddied water, and cow elephants come not and rub against him in the water hole. And at that time he thinks, in the past I dwelt in a crowd, but now I dwell alone, withdrawn. And breaking off a bunch of boughs with his trunk, he rubs his body with it, and joyfully allays the itch. Just stop here for a moment. Here the Buddha is talking about the forest tusker, like the leader of the herd. When he walks with his crowd of elephants, and he wants to eat the grass, he finds that the other elephants has eaten the grass, so that the grass becomes very short for him to eat, and he gets annoyed. And then because he is big, he breaks off the branches, the twigs, the leaves to eat. And when he breaks them off to the ground, before he starts to eat, the other elephants come and eat up these boughs that he has broken off, the bunches of twigs and leaves, etc. So he gets annoyed with them again. Then when he wants to go and drink in the water hole, to drink the clear water, all the other elephants go and and disturb the water and churn up the mud so that it's not clean water that he gets to drink, so he gets annoyed with them again. Or when he goes down to the water to bathe, the other elephants come along and push him here and there, and he is annoyed again. So he decides to go off on his own and dwell alone. And this is what he does. You see, normally elephants, they are in danger of being attacked by a bunch of lions, for example. So that is why they group together, so that they get protection from each other. But sometimes these big elephants, because they are annoyed with the crowd, they wander off alone. And because they are big and strong, they are not afraid to wander off alone. But not the young ones. So the Buddha continues, and it is just so, monks. When a monk lives in a crowd of monks, nuns, lay disciples, both men and women, rajas, their ministers, course setters, and their disciples, and he thinks, truly I now live in a crowd. What if I were to live alone, withdrawn from the horde? And he resorts to some secluded dwelling, forest, tree root, mountain, glen, cliff, cave, cemetery, wooded upland, open space or heap of straw, and come to the forest, tree root or empty hut. He sits cross-legged, holds his body erect, and sets mindfulness before him. And putting away worldly coveting, he abides with mind freed therefrom. He purges his mind of coveting, putting away ill will and hatred. He abides with mind freed therefrom. Kindly compassionate towards all creatures, he purges his mind of ill will and hatred. Putting away sloth and torpor, he abides freed therefrom, conscious, alert, mindful and aware. He purges his mind of sloth and torpor. Putting away restlessness and worry, he abides unflurried. With mind inwardly calmed, he purges his mind of restlessness and worry. Putting away doubt, he abides with doubt passed by. Know how? Questioner. He purges his mind of doubt as to right things. And putting away these 5 hindrances, weakening the mind's corruptions by wisdom, aloof from sense desires, aloof from unwholesome states, he enters and abides in the first jhana, joyous at having allayed the irritant. Suppressing applied and sustained thought, he enters and abides in the second jhana, then in the third jhana, fourth jhana, sphere of infinite space, sphere of infinite consciousness, sphere of nothingness, sphere of neither perception nor non-perception. In the ending of perception and feeling, and seeing by wisdom that the asavas are completely destroyed, he rejoices greatly at having allayed the irritant. That's the end of the sutta. So here in the same way, the Buddha says, when a monk lives in a crowd of people, monks, nuns, lay disciples, rajas, ministers, etc., then he is irritated, and he decides to go off and live alone in a cave or somewhere. And living alone, he purges his mind of the 5 hindrances, sensual desire, ill will, sloth and torpor, restlessness and worry, and doubt, by practicing mindfulness and meditation. And after that, he attains the first jhana, second jhana, etc., until the ending of perception and feeling, and his asavas are destroyed by wisdom. And then he has completely allayed the irritants or the annoyances. So that is the way the Buddha says that we should practice. That is why in the suttas we find very often the Buddha encourages a monk to go off and live alone, because in a crowd of people it's very difficult to practice. There are a lot of irritants, things to annoy a monk. Whereas if a monk lives alone, then it is much easier to attain the jhanas, states of deep meditation, and from there to destroy the asavas and attain liberation.